Hello, everybody. This is Side Mountain. Everybody in their seats. Hello, hello, everyone. Hold on. There we go. Unmiking, unmuting people. Hold on, there we go. Sorry, unmuting. Hello. That was smooth. That was so smooth.
I like the
Welcome.
big voice from the mountaintop.
Totally. I don't have monoscene to do my Sine Mountain. Anyhow, welcome everybody who's tuning in, who's tuned in right now. This is the Festival Meetup, Day 2 of the Colorado Modular Synth Festival, brought to you by the Colorado Modular Synth Society. Uh, thank you. Last night was amazing. As some of you might have watched or could rewatch, it was great. We have a lot more packed today. We're gonna do this meetup today, and then afterwards, after this, we have some more performances, and then an after party in New York, and you don't even have to buy a plane ticket. So, how cool is that? Yeah. So, let me get started by introducing everybody here today. I think I could even show your names. Here we go. There we go. All right.
Very
We got
proud.
Trovarsi's helping me co-host today. Thank you, Trovarsi.
You're welcome.
Right on.
Hello, everyone.
All right. There it is. We have Jim from 512
Hi,
over there.
everybody.
Yep. Thank you. Nasty Nachos, aka Alex Anderson
Yo,
from
yo.
WMD. We got Mitch from Empress Effects.
Hey.
There is Mitch. Hello. And Learning Modular's own Chris Meyer. Hey, how you doing, Chris?
Doing really well down here in roasting hot New Mexico.
Yeah. We have to do a competition of who's hotter right now between
Jim.
Southern California, Colorado, and Albuquerque.
I know Jim's over 100 today, so he might win this one. I don't know. But Trovarsi probably pretty warm too.
It's hot.
Yeah.
Very hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was getting my hair cut outside today, too.
It's just like sweating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what's hot is Eurorack. That was a terrible
Good segue. Good segue.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of put together this festival because in our last festival that we did last year, we had a bunch of talks and an interactive section at the festival, and that's part of Colorado Modular Synth Society. It's not only to play and listen to music, but also to learn with each other. So that's part of why we do our meetups, and this would be our monthly meetup anyhow, right about this time. So let's put one right in the middle of the festival so we can try to accomplish those things by sharing and learning. So I'm going to do my very best to look at this screen and look at chat and try to pull in some questions and stuff like that. But just bear with me. This is it's been a wild couple of weeks and a couple days, so I'll do my best. Uh, so what we're gonna do for everybody watching is we're going to do some updates and demos from WMD 512 and Empress, and then Chris is gonna walk through the TARDIS and talk a little bit about some things around that.
How to mess up some beats.
How to mess up the beeps and bleeps and divide the bloops. So we're gonna try to pack a lot into this hour and a half and just kind of keep it free flowing and yeah, that's kind of the run of the show. So I already forgot who I said was gonna start first. Yes, Alex. Let's start with you because I think you have had the biggest news in the last day or two with the new modules coming out and specifically the Javelin and the Carbon.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, thanks everybody for watching and being here. It's awesome. Yeah, so WMD, we got two new modules. One is called Javelin, one is called Carbon. Javelin is a 6 HP envelope with an integrated VCA, and it has a really cool accent feature and some time range and level features that just make it really great for live performance and just dialing in envelopes in general. And then Carbon is spelled C4RBN. It's like the best way we could fit it on a 4 HP panel. So that one is a filter, and it's a 2-pole and 4-pole multi-mode style state variable filter. So it has high pass, low pass, and band pass modes, 2-pole outputs for each of those, and then it has a 4-pole output, which is essentially a second 2-pole filter. And with that one, you can switch it with a button, and you can switch the modes with a button, and then it also has an output wave folder. So I'm going to switch my camera, and we'll move over to my system, and
Okay.
I'll show you guys a little bit of how they sound together. So they're a really nice like couple of modules to run together. So right now what I have is a saw wave just running into the Carbon, going, and then out of the Carbon, the 2-pole low pass out, we're going into the Javelin. And then we're using the Javelin, and that's using the VCA, and then we have the envelope of the Javelin going out into the Carbon. So it's just going to be a 1 envelope, single oscillator filter subtractive voice. And I'm going to clear out my pitch information here, so you can just hear the way that the envelope reacts to the accents. So right now I have channel 14. You can see these are my gates. So channel 13 is the gate for Javelin, so we've just got 16th notes. And then channel 14 is my accent gates. And so you can hear that these 4 consecutive gates, the accent actually kind of climbs. And that's because the accent input is slewed, so you get this kind of breathing effect when you hit it with accents. So when you just hit one accent, it'll rise a little bit, but then when you do consecutive ones, it rises a little bit more. So this is a really awesome way of accenting for like acid bass lines, for techno and acid house and things like that. So it's a really cool way of creating sequences that are just a little bit more expressive than just a static envelope. So then we have the ranges. So right now we're on the shortest range and the lowest envelope settings. And basically what this is the level is an attenuator over the output level of the envelope. So right now we're on the lowest. So now with this button we can just tap it and we can open up our filter a little bit more. We tap it again, we can go to the max setting. So this is really cool because when you're playing a live set, a lot of times you're going to want to do a big build, and you might just want to do it static like that, but then going back to that exact place you were can be really hard. And so now you don't have to do that with the knobs, you can just do that with this button here. And then we have the same thing over range, which is time range. And so that's the middle range there, and then we have the longest range here. So when you're mixing the two of those, you get lots of expression just from these 2 buttons, and then you just hit the button a 3rd time to bring it back. One of my favorite things is that you can hit both of these buttons at the same time and they will perform their functions. So you can get like I get real crazy in here with like all my fingers on the buttons because I just love pressing all the buttons at once to turn something off. Javelin also has a loop setting, so if we take out the gate input, we can just loop the envelope here. So you can use it as an LFO modulation source. It also has 3 different shapes that the stages can be. So basically this is the multi-mode envelope core. So the WMD multi-mode envelope was our first envelope and kind of our flagship envelope for a long time. And what we did is we took that and we took all of our favorite things from it and put it into a really simple and easy to use package. So with the exponential, right now we're on a linear envelope. If we hold the loop button, we can go to a more moderate exponential curve. If we hold it again, we're going to get to a even steeper and harder curve. And if we hold it again, we're going to go back to nothing, or to linear, excuse me. So really a lot of control there. And then with this mode, this is just a gate or trigger mode. So in gated mode, if you have to have the gate high for it to reach all of the stages. And if it's in trigger mode, you can just hit it with a trigger and it'll go through all of the stages. So you don't have to be using gates if you don't want to. Which might be a really nice thing for using like logic bass patches, switch bass patches, more ambient kind of stuff. If you want to set up a real long, slow envelope and have it be controlled just by triggers, maybe on like a comparator or a random gate generator, something like that. That trigger mode is going to be really cool for that, because then you can just always run through it. Doesn't matter how long the gate lasts. We also have we also have CV over attack and release. This is really nice to just be able to sequence the release of your envelope. So we can go through here and just record some modulation for the attack or for the release. And then we also have this reset input, which just takes the envelope and chokes the envelope down, so you can use another gate input if you want to stop the envelope that way. You also have, with the CV over attack and release, there is the ability to assign the decay parameter to be controlled by the release CV as well. So you can use that same CV to do decay and release, similar to like how a MIDI Moog or something like that would work. So that's really nice with that. And then we have the amp CV, which is just if you want to use the VCA separately, you can just plug a CV into that, and now it's a completely separate VCA from your envelope. But as by default, it is normaled out of the envelope out is normaled to that input, so it's all in one kind of thing. So that's pretty much it on Javelin. And then Carbon is a 4 HP filter that goes super well with it. And right now, like I said earlier, we're on the 2-pole mode. So this is the 2-pole low pass. We also have input saturation. So if you hold this button here, we can cycle through 3 different levels of input saturation. So on the max, you can hear it kind of beef up the low end. What's up? On the max saturation, you can kind of hear it a lot for through the stream probably, but it's a very subtle effect, and I'm not sure it's going to translate super well through the stream. But when I turn it off, if you're listening on headphones, you should be able to hear just that low end kind of disappear there. So 3 different kind of tonal options, and that's just on the input. So that takes your input signal and runs it through a saturation circuit before it hits the filter. And then we have these 3 modes. So right now we're on low pass. I can go out and we have a band pass output, and we have a high pass output. The FM knob is a inverting attenuator, also known as attenuverter. So in the middle you get no CV, on the right you get positive CV, and on the left you get negative CV. So that's really nice for using high pass signals. So now we're going to move to the 4-pole output. And the 4-pole output's mode is controlled by this switch in these LEDs up here. So right now we're on the low pass setting. And then if we switch to bandpass, here's bandpass. And then here's high pass. The cool thing about there's a couple cool things about the 4-pole output. It has an output wave folder, so it's the same circuit that's in the Synchronine module, which is a classic filter from us, and it has an awesome wave folder circuit in it. And so we took that same circuit, put it in here, and that gives you this real nice, screamy kind of sound. Go back to low pass here. So it just loves to just take that resonance and just eat it for breakfast. So the other thing about this that's really nice is that these buttons have a delayed reaction. So to show you what I mean, I'm just going to switch over here to a nice long gate. There we go. So I'm just going to tap this button, and you're going to hear, after I tap it, you're going to hear it change the bandpass just a second afterwards. Now we'll switch to high pass. So the reason it has that delayed reaction is so you can purposefully get to the filter that you want to get to and hold that button at that time and then release to purposefully change the filter on the beat or exactly when you want to. So right now I just want to go one step. I want to go from high pass to low pass. So I'm just going to hit the button once, but I'm going to hold it. Now I'm going to wait and then release and change that right when I want it to change. So if we want to go straight from low pass to high pass and not have to get to band pass, we can hit the button twice. And now it tells us that we're going to high pass, but it doesn't change until we let go. So I can do that with purpose, with intention, and have it just really fit my sound that I'm going for at that time. So then the last thing on Carbon is that it does track full per octave super well. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go to a fully resonant filter here. We're going to take out the FM. You can hear, just turn up that sustain, and then we will just make some sort of, let's not do that. Let's clear that out. Got to set my voltage range here to be a scale, and I'm just going to do octaves and sevenths here. So you can hear it tracks really well, takes that full per octave signal. So if you're doing key tracking, anything like that, it's going to sound really nice and follow your oscillator well, making sure that you are always letting out the harmonics that you want. And then also if you want to make like an 808 style bass line, turn that resonance all the way up and run that through a VCA, and now you've got a CV-able sine wave. So that is the two new modules. Both of those. So Javelin is going to be $199, Carbon is $189, and Javelin will be pretty much ready to ship. Javelin and Carbon should be ready to ship by the end of next week, if not the week after that. So very, very soon these will be shipping and in your all's hands. So are there any questions about these things?
I was just going to say, it's really clear how your guys' experience with live performance is really seeped into those modules. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of really great performance features instead of just the great technical stuff.
Totally, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's really everything. I mean, for us, we understand that not everybody is really focused on the live performance thing, but as far as music goes, what we are trying to do is create an instrument. And an instrument needs to be played, and so we're really working on ways to make it fun to play with your hands, and then also give you the ability to do that remotely with CV if you can't get there with your hands.
Cool.
It's very cool.
Very nice.
Awesome.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
and so-
Carbon is just so much fun, man. With that wave folder, it's like you just turn the envelope up, switch it to high pass, turn the wave folder on. I did it in both of the demo videos because it's just like so effective. And it just sounds like it's just such a cool effect. And then you can get your fingers in there, no problem. And you can turn the wave folder off, go back to the slowest or the shortest range and switch to low pass with no problem, just a little bit of practice. So,
yeah, and I love it that you added that VCA option in there because we always need more VCAs.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, that was
Can't wait to get it.
yeah, with the ADSR VCA, that was one of our favorite modules to use, but not having not having attack and release CV. Which is something you got on the multi-mode envelope with the expander. And it was just like, just trying to figure out how to take all the aspects of everything that we use all the time and just take the best aspects and put them all into one module. So that's all we need. But yeah, I think that, a voice with 2 oscillators, 2 Javelin, and a Carbon is going to be a pretty solid rock and roll Moog voice.
That's awesome. Let me check the chat real quick, see what people are saying here. Dope, excellent, great. Those aren't questions, but they're all all compliments for sure.
We have some buyers already.
I know. I was like, yeah, I think you might want to head over and get that pre-order in real quick.
Yeah, so wmdevices.com is our website. Yeah, there's a lot more info on our website. There are 2 demos up on YouTube now. And then I have a couple more demos. I mean, you guys got a pretty thorough thing being able to hear the tracking. But yeah, I'll have some more demos, and make sure if you don't to follow us on Instagram, because we will be doing lots and lots of audio examples there.
Yeah, and also, this is a good time to also plug the giveaway we're doing because WMD is giving away a Carbon as well. So be sure to enter that. In fact, this is actually a good reminder to give everybody or tell everybody the Magic Modular code for the giveaway. Here, let me post it up real quick. All right, there it is, which is I think is apropos as with the Javelins VCAs. So the Magic Modular code is more VCAs spelled
Oh,
out
nice.
my terrible elite.
Yeah, so we do have so we will be giving away a Carbon, and whoever wins that, I guess you'll just coordinate with me, and it'll ship in like a week or so. They are not fully built yet as we had hoped, but we'll be able to get them out to you really soon. Someone asked if there was anything else I can show, and I had one thing I wanted to show.
Oh, okay. Well, let me switch over.
So this is a pretty simple thing. I don't think there's anything else I can not show. But so we've been experimenting with the 1U side of things. And so we have made a 1U little adapter panel that has a hole for your 4HP and for your 4HP module, and then it has pressed in inserts so you don't have to mess with nuts or anything like that. And you can just put your 4HP module in. I've got my DB25 set up for my mixer right here. And then this just screws with M3 screws right into the panel. So it's super easy. And if you have a 4HP module you need to put up in 1U, you can just throw it up there. And you don't even have to take out the panel to do it now. You can just literally take this out, plug it in, and you're good to go. So that's something that we're working on. It's just like a little fun thing that I thought was cool, that I thought people might like to see. And then as far as other modules we're working on, I can't really talk about it.
When are you going to put out that 1U adapter, the adapter? I didn't hear.
So that should be ready in the next like 2-3 weeks.
Very cool. Because I use the palette case a
Hopefully.
lot. It's like handy. It'll be handy.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
one
It's just,
module that's like, you know,
Yeah.
how can I?
yeah, it's one of those things it'll be really fun to use. And like you said, like for me, I own one U module. I don't own too many, so it's nice for me to just be like, oh yeah, I like a 410 module. The 10 module with those faders is going to be a really nice module to have in any case. So it's like, just throw it up in 1U if you need to.
That's cool. Seriously.
Mhm.
Yeah, I dig that. Oh, look out for that. For sure. Super cool. Love it. You put out a lot of stuff this year.
Yeah,
Besides
we're at 6.
6.
Yeah, I'm stoked. It's really cool to work with such an awesome team. You know, where everybody's really motivated, and everybody plays, so everybody wants this stuff. So we're all trying to fill our cases with the stuff that we want to play, and it's really cool, and it's really motivating to work with my team. Everybody is really great. And as far as the new modules this year, you know, it's like this is kind of the year where we've been a lot more open, where we have an idea, and we put it out, we throw it down. We've in the past we've definitely like beat more things to the ground and just like killed ideas before they started, and we've gotten a lot better at just being like, that's a cool idea, let's just do it.
Yeah. Well, I think we all appreciate that.
Mhm.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we have a couple more. Definitely have a couple more things coming out to round out what this whole system is going to look like by the end of the year, I hope. So definitely stay tuned, please.
Yeah,
Very
we'll
cool.
definitely, and we'll have Alex back on for those updates too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And anybody who's watching, maybe they don't understand, but like, yeah. So WMD is in Colorado. We're Colorado, so we do a lot of our meetups in the warehouse there. And if you're ever in Colorado when Salt opens up, come down to our meetup and get a tour. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
to
for
see
sure.
out there. Yeah. I can't wait for that day one day. Hang out again,
Me
Alex.
too.
Yeah, I can't wait to. I haven't been in the shop since March.
Wild.
I mean, I think I've been there like twice to pick stuff up, but I've been here since March. So
Yeah, well, you've been busy.
yeah,
I
it's been
appreciate it.
cool. It's
Definitely not holding
definitely
you
been an
back.
experience to like design modules via Zoom.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty way to adapt. It's awesome. Let's keep moving on. Let's talk to Mitch. Mitch over there at Empress Effects.
Hey.
How's it going, man? Let's get some updates.
Good.
On
Yeah,
everything.
so we're making a module. I thought it'd be ready by now, but it's not. So yeah, we turned the Zoya into a module, and it's, I would say, about 2 months from being ready. And then, yeah, we're also giving away a reverb today. So
Cool.
Got it right here. I will unplug it and and box it up.
cool.
I just had to give it a little, test. I want to make sure.
To make sure it works.
Well,
So-
yeah, I hate to
Not
ship
gonna
it out.
explode. Make sure
Exactly.
it's safe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we appreciate your quality control there.
Yeah, thanks.
I did
thanks for that.
update the software on it too, so I have all those new algorithms.
Cool. Yeah, that's good. I mean, it does have the 6.0. I think is pretty much still in beta, but we added like 3 new algorithms that are pretty cool. And
Nice.
Mhm.
I'll show you a couple of them, and then the other thing I'll show you is just a couple of maybe presets that I'm working on the Zoya, the modular version, and it ships with like 64 presets. So I guess this would be a good time to ask people like what kind of presets they would want on the Zoya. And if you have ideas, you can email me. I'll leave my email in the comments on the YouTube thread. And if you have ideas for presets, yeah, email me.
Cool.
And yeah, what I've been doing is I'll switch the camera real quick.
What kind of presets have you guys been working on already?
Yeah.
Well,
Or are you guys not
Oh.
there yet? Because I understand that too.
we've got some.
Cool.
Right now they're just pretty basic. The ones I've been doing are like risers and droppers, so
Hell
you
yeah.
can like, because I didn't want to use the whole module for like these little transitions, so I just made a patch that is just risers and droppers. And this one's a simple noise patch. And then there's, this is an oscillator going through a bit modulator. Let's see, what else? There's I have one that's a sample, like a sample riser that I can trigger with push buttons. And so I'll play a sequence real quick. And this red button, I can just record what I'm recording rings and flats. And then I stop recording and hold the push button. It I can drop the pitch. This is a sampler module in the Zoya.
Dude, that is dope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
Thanks.
really cool.
Thanks. Yeah, that's kind of what I've been messing with, and then the possibilities for it are kind of unlimited as far as what you can do with it. But yeah, let's see, what other presets do I have right now? CV loopers and mixers, and there's one other guy that's working on presets too, and he did like a riff on the darkest timeline.
Oh, that's
Kind
cool.
of.
That's one of my favorites. Can you switch your camera so we can see it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, I'm a huge Darkest Timeline fan. Huge. So it's cool.
But yeah, I haven't played with it yet. There's some kind of matrix kind of thing going on it. But yeah, there's kind of, this is a random preset where it does every kind of random thing you could imagine. And then there's like a loop
Sounds
sampler
cool.
where you can play different, you can resample your loops and play them back. Because it's a sandbox, you can kind of have multiple loopers and samplers and stuff. So yeah, it's really fun.
And
So-
for those who may not know, those patches you can share amongst other users.
Right, yeah. There's already about 500. I think one time I said there's 1,000, but there's not. There's 500 patches on patchstorage.com already for the pedal version of the Zoya, which is right here.
Mhm.
And
Will you be able to take those patches for the pedal? Will they translate into the Eurorack version and vice versa?
yeah, everything should be cross compatible except your stomp switches and your CV outs. Also, the pedal doesn't have dedicated audio inputs, so you have to patch an audio input. So if you patch from the pedal, you'll just have you'll have an extra audio input. But everything should work just fine between the two, so you will already have access to all these really cool kind of patches. For example, this is what I was going to show. The other thing I was going to show was the reverb. I've got some dissonant notes in here too, just as an example and this is just the Form S Swan, and this is one of the new reverb algorithms that we added, and it's like an ambient evolving delay and reverb. And then this is Cork Streamed. It's a like micro looper that also has reverb in it, and it's one of those patches you can download on patch storage that yeah. But anyway, that's with nothing. And yeah, I won't keep this. I know we still have a lot to do, or a lot going on, so I won't keep you too long.
I have a question for you, Mitch, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I know the last time when you showed the Zoya module, is that what the correct name now?
Zoya Euro Bureau.
So you're still calling it the Euro Bureau. Okay,
yeah.
That was my first question. Second is then, are you changing any of the configurations since the last time you kind of showed? Is that sort of the delay, or you don't necessarily have to answer that? I'm just wondering.
The hardware will all be the same.
Okay.
There will be new modules and new features that I think are pretty exciting. I don't really have any now. They might not, we'll have a sampler module which isn't on the Zoya, but there are some other kind of big things that and improvements that are really cool. I don't know if they'll ship with the new with the first firmware, or if they'll come like at a later date. But we have we've put a lot of work into the Zoya firmware, and our engineers are constantly updating it and making new things with it, so it's always evolving and getting better and easier to use. And then we have like a user forum where we try to implement the most popular things that people want. So I imagine it will probably evolve even more after more modular users start using it and have suggestions and ideas and things.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm super excited for that to happen, because obviously, like, I can imagine that this success with the Euro Bureau could lead to more Empress Effects modules coming out, which would be great. I've been really impressed with how well like the reverb pedal works with the setup. I have mine set up, route it through the performance mixer, and it's been like great.
Cool, perfect. Yeah, I think one of the DivKid just did a video on it, but on the CV MIDI thing, but he used the reverb because you can control all the parameters of our reverb with CV at one time, and you can attenuate each one to different levels. So yeah, and the Zoya does have a few of our reverb algorithms that are in the pedal too.
And that's great.
Cool.
Yeah.
David, it's cool that you mentioned that. One of the awesome things about Zoya and
Oh, your mic's like turned down.
Yeah, can barely hear you, Alex.
It's because I'm using this mic. For Zoom meetings, I can just use my computer. Yeah, it's a cool thing that you mentioned that. One of the things about just like virtual modular in general that's awesome is like prototyping and coming up with new ideas in a small space. And Zoya is a really great way for people to come up with ideas for any sort of instrument, and be able to put that together and test ideas.
Yeah, that's interesting. It'd be interesting to see if we see a module emerges off of what people were patching up and so we have to want to get ready for that. That would be super cool. Yeah. That's rad. Well, thanks for that update. Let us know as you get closer to the ship date. It's ready to come out. Let us know. We'll bring it back on and see the final product.
Cool.
And,
yeah. I look forward to it.
Yeah. And any updates on any of the other pedals and stuff too. That's totally cool with me, since I know we have a lot of people. I know Gerald Fjord's out there probably has all the pedals anyhow too. So I mean, there's definitely some crossover with the pedals, especially with all the CVs and MIDI integrations with the pedals. So that's rad. Super excited. Awesome. Speaking of updates, we have an update from Jim over at 512 about the vector. So anybody, Jim, do you want to just give a real quick rundown a little bit about the vector for those who haven't got a chance to check it out yet?
Sure. Let me flip the camera over.
Sure, and you can turn up your mic just a little bit.
Okay. So
And let me switch to
that better on the mic?
Yep.
All right. So the vector is a 42 HP module. There's also a 12 HP expander over here in the corner, and it's a digital sequencer with an analog style control interface. It has 2 large OLED displays, so it makes it easy to see all the parameters. Has a mix of CV and MIDI outputs. There are 2 full sets of pitch, gate, and velocity CVs on board. There's 4 more on the expander. The expander also has some trigger outs. I'm going to be using these for drums, and MIDI in and out on DIN jacks and DIN sync in and out. And we also have both kinds of USB. I've got the launch pad plugged in on USB-A. That's new in version 2. And then the other one I had running to the computer earlier for a firmware update. And then all the parameters are visible. You can edit them by turning the encoders, and there are different edit pages along the top, and try to make a good job of having the graphics change every time you move to a new page. And so to start, let me make sure my demo track is still running. Okay. So I'm going to move to a blank preset here. Show a little bit of editing and also some of the new things in 2.0. Obviously the launch pad is new, and I'm using it primarily for navigating. I can change which part I'm looking at, and then there's a way I can get in and do the drum editing from there. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to clear out this pattern, and I can dial in some pitches and push the encoders. Get the notes in. I can also adjust the gate times over on the gate page. I can create tied notes. And then a nice new trick is that when I push encoder to mute the steps and then unmute them, it maintains the gate style, the gate length. Velocity page, we can set the velocity level. I don't have it mapped for this patch, but one new thing is I can set that to, let me find the setting. Velocity numeric. People have been asking for numeric velocity values, so that's going to be available. These are actually the voltage outputs, so if I dial them all down to 0, you get nearly 0 volts, all the way up to 5 volts. Step length and step repeat are on separate pages, so I can set different step lengths per step. I can also clear those out using Shift and push the edit button. In fact, I can do that on any of these pages, so I can clear out all the gates that way and start over. We have ratchets, so you can ratchet steps. Very handy. Chance operations, which are very popular. I'm actually going to clear out the pitch values. And just set up a simple repeated bed of notes. I was showing this earlier with David, so I'll do this patch again. So I'm going to select 3 steps. I'm going to use a pitch operation. I'm going to shift up by 7 semitones, which would be a fifth. I'll set that probability to be about 40%. select a couple other notes, and I'm going to set those. Let's say go up 5 semitones. So a trick I'm using here is the white keys along the bottom have 3 different modes I can see on the display: skip, mute, and select. So if they're in skip mode, I can skip out the steps in the sequence one by one. But also, very handy on the chance side, I can put it into select mode, and I can select some steps and then edit them as a group using encoder number 9. I can clear out the selection by holding down the shift key and pushing select. Okay, another trick that's I can use to modify a sequence is to use modulation. We have a couple of internal sequencers to do modulation, but also we can use external CV. So I've got LFO coming here. I got a Dixie running in LFO mode, coming in on mod 1. I'm going to set that as the source and set it to modify pitch. I can adjust the amount so I get a different range of pitch changes. So now I've got all these notes going on in constructed manner. At least I can control it in an abstract manner. I can adjust the rate of the LFO. I can go back to the modulation page, adjust the amount. If I want, I can limit it to just octaves, or just fifths and octaves, 7 and 12 semitones. Or I can go for a very wide range. Going a little further, I can go back to a subsequencer. I'm going to say 8 steps. I'm going to speed it up. I'm going to use this to modulate octaves. Set that to octave, turn this on. Now I'm going to pick a few steps. Go back and change direction to be random. So I built an entire sequence without touching the main sequence steps at all, which is kind of fun. And if I want, I can go in and turn these off one by one. Okay, another new thing in 2.0 are tunings. So on the global page, I can dial down. I have 2 tunings I can load from MIDI tuning specification files, which you can generate easily out of Scala. And these are the 2 external ones you can load. And then in the sequence control pages, you can set which tuning each part uses. And normal is normal tuning. But also, I have interval and numeric and voltage tunings, which are still basically 12 tones per octave, but the readout is different. So here you get basically MIDI note numbers, or you can have interval values if you want to work that way, or you can work with a direct voltage output, so you get the same voltage range, but you're not looking at note names. Some people prefer to work without that. And then there are some built-in tunings, 0 to 5 volts, plus or minus 3 volts, which are also good for, you want to work outside of any sort of normal scale. And there are a few tricks here that work across all the tuning modes. If you hold down Shift and turn the knob, it'll go up and down a volt for here. Usually it's up and down an octave, but this tuning doesn't really have volts. We also have equal temper tunings for 13 tones per octave, 14, 15, 16, and 24. I'm going to add a couple more in here. And then these are the 2 tunings I loaded from MIDI tuning files. So I'm going to turn this back to normal, clear out the sequence again, turn my modulations back on.
And Jim, your video is coming in a little fuzzy, so I appreciate when you're talking through it because I could. If we can't see it, we can definitely hear it.
Right. Okay. All right. I'll talk a little slower and say everything I'm doing. Okay, something else new in 2.0 is Launchpad support, and the initial idea was to allow drum programming, but also just to make it easier to move around the system by having a dedicated side controller. So there are 4 basic pages available, and on the session page, which is the first page, the top row selects a part. So if I set the vector on the pitch page and I start flipping through the parts on the launch pad, you can see the UI on the vector follows. Part 8 is my drum part. Part 1 is the sequence part I was editing earlier. Then the second row are mutes, so if I start the sequence, I can turn the drums back on. There's a little bass line, a little note wash. And then on what says drums on the launch pad, but is actually preset page, I can select a preset. So let me turn part 1 back on. And I have some different presets that I've been playing around with. There is a keyboard mode, so I can, on part 1, I'm going to clear out this preset one more time and go to the record page, set that to be on through mode USB A. So now I can play directly on the launch pad into the synthesizer while everything else is running. And new in version 2.0 also, I can do that while I am otherwise looking at a different part. So this stays active regardless of what page I'm on in the vector. And then the 4th main page for the Launchpad mapping has kind of 2 sections. This is a navigation section. I've got 1 button for each of the 8 parts, and if I push the drum part, now I've got a grid editor for my drum pattern, so I can go in and clear out the pattern.
Jim, there's a question in the chat. Someone's asking if you can do scales in that mode so you don't hit the wrong notes. I think it's Gerald.
In the drum mode or
in the other mode, in the scale mode?
Yes. All right, so let me turn this off for a second. So there's an edit page for monophonic parts. This is for part 1. Let me unmute that part. Now, globally, I have the scale set to E flat major. And in each part, if I want to, I can override that, but I'm going to leave that alone for now. For editing a part on the launch pad, you get 7 rows. The bottom row is the first Roman numeral. I'm drawing blank. Oh, yeah, unity note. The second, a major third or a minor third, depending on what scale you're in. The 4th, the 5th, 6th, and 7th tones. And then the top row gives you octaves, so I can go up an octave and jump around like this. I can easily edit. Everything stays on within the scale based on quantization.
That's amazing.
That's
Yeah.
so nice.
That is very
So
cool.
there's also a trick, it's not in this implementation yet, where say you want to be in a chromatic scale, you can hold a note and then push above or below it and shift it up or down a semitone. And then I can work with longer sequences. So this is kind of a fun way to edit. It's very different from working with the knobs and the note names, right? It's very easy to jump octaves and to change the octaves of things. And then one new trick, you can see the screen flipping back and forth, is called follow, and that forces the vector UI to follow the current step of the sequence. And you can turn that on and off easily by holding down the Q button and pressing encoder 9. I don't have follow running yet on the launch pad, but that should also be interesting. I'll mute that part for now. Go over to the drums. Basically cue this up on the vector. 4 parts at a time, corresponding to 4 lanes of drums. 16 steps at a time. I'll bump that up so it'll cover the full range later. You can scroll over. Basically, very simple grid editing. So, kind of fun to just kind of goof around, right? And I can always flip back over to the vector, clear out the pattern. Can go back onto the vector, edit the velocity values. I don't have velocities mapped to these sounds yet. For editing velocity, there's a cursor control. You can control with encoder 9, tells you which lane you're editing. And once you're on the lane you want, you push it, and when it switches to edit mode. And now I can go in and edit in the velocities for those together, or one at a time, or all together. And we have some chance operations specifically for drums. I'm going to select a few steps, dial this up to those. So there's some mute ones and there's some swap ones. So I want to do ones where I'm swapping 1 and 2. Which I'm going to need to add a few more hits so you can actually tell. There's another one for mute. Jump over to those, which are here. So I want to mute just on 4s. So a really easy way to add some probability here. I want to add ratchets in here as well. I know a lot of people have been asking to have ratchets on individual drum lanes. So let's see what else is on my demo list.
Jim, while you're looking at your list, so with the drums, can you record it quantized or unquantized? Well, excuse me, unquantized? Like, can you play them on the pads and record it in that way?
Not yet. That's I call that real-time recording. People have been asking for that on the pitch side. I want to add it in. I can't quite say when yet.
Cool.
For some of the cool note stuff you're doing with the Launchpad, can you also do that with a normal MIDI controller plugged into the USB input?
For playing notes on this page,
Yeah.
yeah, that'll work for any MIDI controller. Another fun trick is on the Launchpad
Cool.
Pro and the Launchpad X have pressure-sensitive pads, so I've been experimenting with how to map that in an interesting way. So have it come out of velocity and map that to filter cutoff, or have it come out of velocity and map it to maybe vibrato.
And and can you also do this with chords? The chords mode.
Yeah, chords. I don't have chords patched in today, but I can show you how the parts look.
So just to let people know, if you haven't looked at the 512 vector, there's what, 9 parts? Am I getting it right? Oh, 9.
Eight parts.
Eight parts.
Yeah.
In parts 5 through 8, you can switch to a chords mode or the drum mode. And the chords is great if you have which you have 2 MIDI outs, so you can route those to something that can play chords.
Yep. No, I've got a chord prologue I usually use for that, but also the peak, which is behind me, is great for that. You can route it out of MIDI out, or you can assign some or all 4 voices to CV out, so you can even layer things, so have a monophonic bass line with the chord that's coming out of an analog synth, and then have a digital synth with the rest of the chord on it.
I've been using it with the Bitbox and playing chords with the Bitbox, which is
Yeah.
super fun and keeps everything nice and tidy.
Yeah, one interesting little trick with the Bitbox is you can run MIDI out directly from the vector into the MIDI input on the Bitbox. It's the same format, so you just need a 3.5 millimeter TRS to TRS cable.
Yep.
So that's very handy.
I need to try this.
Yeah,
I
totally.
need to try the sequencer now.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah, so one thing I want to kind of point
Have a
out is, like, yeah, when Jim, when you're, 2 things really quick that pop out to me is, like, when you're able just to, like, not even touch the keys, not even write anything, and just use chants and modulation to create melodies and bass lines so quickly, and that sound musically to me like really 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 good, is pretty impressive that you have that functionality in there kind of built in there, and that's just to get you started, right?
Yeah, it's
So I think
it's really useful, particularly if you've been busy all day, you're coming into the studio, you don't have a lot of time. How can I get something going quickly that's interesting, or maybe it's not so interesting at the start, but you can adjust some things and add some modulation to push it in a direction that you want to go. Or there are even pattern generators. So hold down Shift and press the generator button, and it'll generate different patterns for you based on some algorithms that are set up in preferences.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of options for, like, okay, I'm sitting down, I've kind of got a basic patch going. How can I get some melody lines going to give me some ideas of what direction I want to go in?
Yeah, I've been really impressed how fast you can kind of create those ideas and then move on to another part, or I'm sorry, another scene, and start building, layering up, and have a whole song pretty quick. Another thing that kind of popped up to me is, like, I personally have never been interested in the Launchpad until now, which I didn't. I just haven't. It's not where my mind goes usually. Uh, what made you think about going to the Launchpad specifically?
Well, I did years and years ago, I did a mapping for numerology, which is my sequencing software for Mac OS desktop. And when the Launchpad came out, a friend of mine showed it to me, and he thought, "Oh, this would be great to use with numerology." I'm like, I don't want to. We'll see, And he loaned it to me, and I borrowed it. And actually, I remember we were going to the NAMM show, and basically on the plane did this basic drum grid mapping, and like, okay, this can be pretty useful. So I worked on that off and on for a while, did a pretty in-depth mapping because it, with desktop software, sometimes you just want to not work with the mouse or the keyboard. So the Launchpad offered a way to have, this style of editing for drums, and then this style of editing for pitched parts. And just I was just amazed how far you could take the mapping without losing context by just being careful about what colors you picked and how you organize the screen. And it's, from my perspective, when you use it, it's an open palette, right? You can take it in any direction you want. It's just how creative can you be in terms of how you use the grid. And then for vector, the very initial design, this was not USB, this was a MIDI input. And then we revised it to be USB, and specifically one of the reasons is like, okay, at some point I want to be able to plug in a Launchpad. And the advantage is it gives you, access to a grid outside of the encoders and displays for things that really map easily to a grid. So drum editing is obviously one, but also the session page, which is only about a quarter filled out. So being able to, quickly move between parts, quickly mute and unmute parts. The next 2 rows I probably want to do lane mutes for drums, and then some other kind of system level shortcuts. So almost like this is a remote control for the vector, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great. I mean, performance-wise, I could totally see. I mean, I'm lucky right now that I can get to my vector, but it won't be much longer before it gets covered up in spaghetti. So being able to control it from
Spaghetti.
a different, yeah. Yeah, so that's awesome. We're kind of running a little close on time, so I just want to see, did you want to mention anything else about the updates?
That pretty much covers everything, all the big stuff. So, and we covered a few extra things with chords. Just real briefly for chord editing, you can set the bass note of the chord, and then there's a cursor here too, and you can go and pick which chord you want in each step. And you can also switch to a custom mode, dial in all of the semitone values for the chords directly. And then something people have been asking for that'll show up soon is a way to enter these from a keyboard. So you'd be able to hold down 3-4 notes on the keyboard and have it map into the chord.
That'd be great. Yeah. So good. Yeah, so definitely, if you all want to learn more about the 512 sequencer, there are some pretty good videos by, I'm forgetting his name, Barry something. My apologies. But yeah, there's some cool videos on that. And then you have a forum on your website at 512.com. In a Facebook group, it's pretty active. And from what I can see, you're taking a lot of the suggestions to heart and keeping up with that. So
yeah, I really try, and I don't always respond to each feature request, but I always read through them and try and organize and go, okay, a lot of people are asking for this. A lot of people ask for the follow mode, so I got that in. It just takes time to work through everything.
Yeah.
I do have one question before we switch. Jim, when I saw you last, you were working on a case or something.
Oh yeah.
Are you still?
Yep, that's still moving on. Let me flip back here. So this case here is the one I had at NAMM. It's back when we used to do things like that. That's 3D printed case. It's 70 HP wide, I think, 2 rows. Cool. And then the drum modules are in kind of, this is just like a ad hoc, what can I build in a half hour. I already had the parts printed. One of the things I've been waiting on are power boards, and I have some prototype power boards I've been testing. And then just odds and ends, little details. I want to have some rubber bumpers on the bottom so they don't slide around. The nice thing about these cases is they're really light, but if you have a small one like this on a desktop, particularly if you raise it up with a kickstand, you're working with it, it slides around a little bit. So I want to put feet on it. And So I've been going through parts looking for different little feet that I can screw onto the bottom.
Very
And
cool.
you're also making it. You're also thinking about that case being the smaller one, so that you can make the vector kind of a standalone, right?
Yeah. I don't have it within reach, but there's a very shallow skiff that's made just for a vector, and so as soon as I get the power boards tested, I'll make a production run of those and be able to start taking orders.
Yeah,
Very
I think
cool.
it's really great. It's a really great sequencer for those who have a lot of other gear, keyboards and other MIDI stuff lying around, because it does integrate so well, and your routing capabilities are crazy. I was just kind of like reading through some comments of people what they were trying to do with their routing and stuff, and I'm like, I wouldn't even think about routing, MIDIs and CVs like that. But it's
Mhm.
pretty cool. So I could see why you maybe want to have a little case for those people who don't have a huge rack but want that sequencer.
Yeah.
Hey
It
Jim,
makes it more portable.
I had a couple questions. What launchpad are you using? And does the new like Launchpad Mark Pro Mark III work with it as well? And then do you need to update the Launchpad in any way to make it work with the Vector?
I'm using all of them except for the very first one, which was black before the Launchpad S.
Okay.
All the newer ones have class-compliant USB MIDI drivers, so they'll talk.
Cool.
This is the Mini Mark III, which I really like. I have the Pro. It's in a pile with about 6 other Launchpads over there. I've almost got it working smoothly. Every Launchpad is a little different, and it's not just the buttons and things. Sometimes on USB they present as actually 2 MIDI devices, and you have to know which one to talk to.
Exactly, yeah.
There's no custom firmware. It's all done internally. You can send it some sysx and say, okay, go into programmer or session mode, whichever is appropriate for that Launchpad, and then you push a button and it sends a note to the Vector. The Vector interprets that, sends a note back to set the color of the button.
Cool.
Very cool.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. No, they're fun. It gets, I'm tripping over them all day long, but they're fun.
Right on. Well, thank you. Appreciate all those updates, and looking forward to seeing more users using them. Sure. We saw actually quite a few yesterday. It was kind of funny seeing all the different vectors out there.
Nice.
Yeah, Dissonant had one in New York. Brian had his. Yeah, so it was cool.
Yeah. No, I love going on Instagram and seeing them all in the different setups and how people are using them. It's so much
Yeah, I
fun.
watched the stream last night. I think there was a few in the stream. They made the cameos. Awesome. Sweet. So hey, all right. So we have Chris here from Learning Modular. If you haven't seen Learning Modular yet, if you're just getting into it, definitely I point people to you all the time, Chris,
Thanks.
to learn stuff and to check out your courses as well. So maybe you want to kind of give everybody a little update on, or at least a little background on what you do, how long you've been doing, and what's up now.
Yeah, I've had the good fortune of playing with modular synths since pretty much the late 70s. When I started learning musical instruments, I learned a bit of bass, a bit of keyboard. I wanted to learn synthesizer as well. And back then, when you wanted to learn synthesizer, your instructor had a modular system, and that's how I learned synthesis back in the late 70s. And I had the good fortune afterwards to work for companies like Sequential, Roland R&D, Digidesign, Marion Systems, and designed some various instruments, some sampling-based stuff, Studio 440, did vector synthesis, things like that. Then I kind of went away for a few decades and played around in Hollywood and got sick of psychotic Hollywood producers. And said what I really enjoy doing is, mucking around with sound and making music. So a few years ago, I decided, wow, the modular scene is happening again. It's the second coming. So the original intention was just to give myself a big personal modular like that system, just to go into my man cave and play around with and be a hermit. But I saw a lot of people who were getting into modulars today didn't have the benefit of all the fundamentals in the background that I had when I was a teen back in the 70s. So I decided to start doing some online courses, just teaching fundamentals of modular synthesis and tricks so people would have that good foundation to build up from. And that's what the Learning Modular site was based around, was giving people that grounding they can start from, and then start adding all these really cool new modules people are making on top of that solid foundation.
That's awesome. And so people, I'll drop a link in the comments so people can go check out your website and stuff and sign up for that because you're still doing your courses.
Yep, even have a free one out there, a free basic concepts one, but for modular, Mother 32, for virtual, the Arturia Modular V, so something for a little bit of everyone.
There's also the book.
Oh yeah,
and
then there's the book for people who still read these things, with ink printed on paper. Kim Bjorn and I worked a couple years ago on creating Patch and Tweak, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. He just did a beautiful design to make it very visually pleasing to look at, and also lots of great informational graphics. And I had fun just doing a full brain dump of everything I had learned over the last couple decades into the book. And we've gotten a really nice reaction to it. It's been really, really nice to hear people say they found it to be so useful.
Yeah, I found that no matter how much you know about these systems, there's always something new to learn in there, at any level.
Yeah, totally. Or just get reminded. One thing that's cool is that, looking at this and looking at these cool diagrams, and I think isn't there like a patch editor, like you can kind of like a beta version online too?
Yeah, there's an online patch editor. How do you represent a patch in a modular synth when everyone has different modules? What was the challenge? And back in the 70s, there was an attempt to come up with a universal patch language, but it kind of languished when synths got presets. And when Kim and I started working on the book, I said, look, we have to revive that language because we don't know what modules people have who are reading the book. We need to translate these ideas to whatever they have and break things down into fundamental building blocks. So we have a patch language throughout the book, a bunch of symbols. The symbols are available free to download from patchandtweak.com. If other people want to start using them in their own documentation, etc. So there's some standard base of graphics across different people's manuals, etc. And there's also an online patch editor where you can go ahead and start mocking up your own patches. People share patches. When I need to make an illustration for an article or a post, I also have a Patreon channel, Patreon/Learning Modular. I'm on the patch editor creating the patches and taking screenshots of that to help illustrate patches.
Yeah, well, it's pretty awesome. We were actually talking about it the other day in a conversation with DivKid and about using it. So yeah, it's out there for sure. It's great. Yeah. It's awesome. So, Chris, what would you like to talk to us about today? We're gonna see the TARDIS.
Yeah, the TARDIS is the nickname for my portable system that DivKid and I did a series of 3 webcasts on. I rebuilt it recently with new power, new module layout. I just wanted to share a few ideas, some common tricks that I do for building up my beats. I like to explore the gray area in between purely repetitive hypnotic beats and pure randomness. I think in between those two, you can come up with some very interesting things that keep listeners engaged in your doing music. And there's a few tricks I have for creating patterns like that. So if you don't mind, I'll switch my camera and we'll head over to my little gigging case, the TARDIS, and we'll see how much time we have and how many tips we can throw in.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's go over to my little baby. This system's kind of broken down to where the bottom half is mostly melodic, vector sequencer, synth voice, acoustic input section, and then the top half is mostly rhythm generation, different pattern generators, different sound generator modules, and then I have a pretty robust effects section in here. And the thing that I say about, even though you can create any sound on a modular and compose any piece of music on a modular, the machines do take you in certain directions and make that easier than doing other things. And one thing that's really easy to do with these things is just very repetitive stuff. Like a 4-on-4 kick, and then maybe just a really insistent repetitive 16th half. That's really easy to do with these beats, to set up these repeating patterns. I'm happy to be using Euclidean circles to create these patterns. The other thing that's become very easy with modern modules is to create completely random stuff. So I can go ahead and say, let's just completely randomize when the kicks are happening. Not necessarily following a specific, every downbeat or something like that. And do the same thing with the hi-hats, where they are also doing just really random little beats on top. That's easy to do, and that's kind of like the other extreme. For me, there's a real interesting ground in between the two, where you have a pattern that's your framework, your grid that you're working from, but then start knocking holes out of that framework every now and then to create some interest and mystery and to keep the brain engaged while you're playing around with it. And I find, for me, the easiest way to do that is to have 2 different pattern generation sources in my machine, and then use actually some digital logic to combine them to create one melded together pattern to then move on to my other modules. For example, in the case of something like a kick drum, let's go ahead and just play around with that a little bit. One of my favorite pattern generators happens to be Mutable Instruments grids or modules based on that, because it has a lot of pre-made patterns that are musically interesting to begin with, and they make it easy to switch between patterns. But what I like to do is maybe knock some holes into that pattern. So, you hear this, the brain figures it out and goes, okay, I'm going to move on to something else because you're not doing anything different. So I'll put a few holes in that by using what's called a probability skipper. A probability is kind of like a coin toss. Every time a trigger comes in, it says, well, should I let that trigger get through or not? And when you decide not to let some through, you have some holes in the pattern. So there's still the basic framework that Grids is putting out, but some of the beats are missing. And with probability skippers, you can decide if it's just a few of the beats are missing, or a lot of them, to make it very abstract. The problem with that is probability skippers tend not to have a strong musical sense. So they could be dropping out, say, the 1, the downbeat at the start of measures. So what I'd like to do is to have a very basic skeleton that I want to keep. Maybe it's just the kick on the 1 or kicks on the 1 and the 3, and then blend that together with these random beats so they become accents to fill in some of those holes in between. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and grab a 3rd pattern here. I just happen to have the 3rd channel of Euclidean circles here patched up to give me a beat on every downbeat. And for this, I'm going to use something that's called an OR gate. What OR says, if a trigger comes in on input 1, or it comes in on input 2, we'll pass the trigger onto the sound module. So I'm going to take my kick drum here, an SSF entity, say, let's go ahead and pass along my downbeat, so that every downbeat, I'm getting a beat from it. But then also say, now let's take my random beats, plug that into the other part of the OR gate, and now I have a mixture of a kick that's always there, or maybe a 1 and 3 that's always there, randomly filled in with just pieces of the pattern from the grids going through the probability skipper. And to me, that's more mentally engaging to listen to. It's something that changes but still has a structure to it. If you're doing something for the dance floor, you want a bias to be more predictable and just have the occasional lost or ghost beat just to make it interesting. Like that one drop there. And if you're doing more like ambient stuff that you're doing for just general listening, particularly if you have things like echo effects, you can go ahead and just space it out a little bit. Get some echo in here. And make that a little bit more of an interesting ambient texture feel to listen to. So that's playing around with kick drums. I'll also do that with hi-hats, where I'll go ahead and say, let's go ahead and have one very predictable pattern, maybe something from grids. Go into one of the channels, in case the mid strike on my WMD Crucible, my favorite little cymbal module. So that's the pattern from grids by itself. Can get boring after a little while, but then I'll start blending in some probability of just another pattern mixing on top of that, hitting another input on the Crucible. And this is where I'll start playing around with different patterns, like maybe use Euclidean circles to create an interesting pattern that has a certain number of beats spread off across 16. Crank up the probability. Now I have something that's syncopated, but it's not random. Everything's on a grid. I'm just knocking holes out of that grid every now and then using the probability skipper. And to me, I find that to be a bit more engaging to play around with. I'll mix the kick back in. And personally, I can listen to a beat like that for a long time. I find that much more engaging than just the simple repetitive stuff. Yeah. But you don't have to do that just with beats. You can also do it with sequence notes. You can play around with those triggers, going to individual notes, and say, let's add some texture to it, or let's drop some stuff out of it. For example, here's just a little Berlin-style sequence I put together with Vector. And maybe I want to add a metallic splash on top of that. So I'll start with something simple, such as a splash that happens maybe on every downbeat. Bring that up. Repitch that. That's nice, but it's repetitive. It gets kind of boring. So instead I might say, for that metallic splash, let's go ahead and use a pattern, like maybe something like a snare pattern, to at least be more interesting. But like our normal patterns, after you hear it for a couple cycles, you kind of lose interest. You want some change to it. So this is where I'll use logic again and say, all right, let's go ahead and take our nice reliable hit on every kick, put that into another input of my OR gate here. We'll pass that along to my percussion module here. I'll turn up a little bit so you can hear it. Then take my snare pattern, and I'm going to co-opt my kick drum here. And then let just bits of that snare pattern get through. So I'm always hitting every downbeat, but just letting parts of that framework get through. So to me, that's a little bit more of like a human making a decision whether to leave a beat out or to put a beat in, rather than just having repetitive patterns all the time. And again, the secret of that is using two different sources for your patterns, passing one of them through a probability skipper to create holes, then mixing them together with logic. Now, if you have any questions on that before we move on to another idea.
Can you do the probability skipping with just Pam's new workout?
Good question. I know it has a randomization, but I don't know if it has the ability to drop out the individual beats. But even then, if you can with Pam, I would go ahead and use a second channel of Pam with a steady beat, then use external logic to layer that together with the probability skipped channel from Pam. What I found quite often is when a lot of these modules have probability to drop out beats, they don't have a musical sense of, I have to keep certain ones and do chance just on other ones. Now with a vector sequencer, you can go ahead and program individual steps to have different probability amounts on them. But that's not normally a feature you find in a lot of stuff like Pamela or others that might have a so-called random beat or a probability feature in them.
Thanks.
Sure. Anything else, David? Do we have a couple minutes?
That sounds awesome. We're gonna have to like kind of move on here. I gotta get to my other stream.
Yeah,
I want to keep
that's
going.
about what's going on today, so I hear, hey?
a little busy over here in these parts, but that's I love, I feel like a lot of what I love about when you do this kind of stuff is that a lot of people have these parts and pieces in their rack.
Yeah.
Or they have something similar to it. If they have a hemispheres, they probably have it as well. But
I think the problem is that a lot of people think they need to fall in love with only one module, like only one pattern generator, etc. And my approach is like, no, I'll have multiple pattern generators, each one's that do different patterns and do different things. Pamela, grids, marbles, Euclidean circles. And then I'll pick and choose bits of those patterns to combine to make a composite pattern to feed onto my sound modules. I think that's probably the main difference, since rather than trying to make one module do that, I'll use multiple modules and blend them.
Chris, what's the logic module you're using?
I happen to be using a ANA module logic object because it's somewhat rare that it has also an inverter. I find that very useful for doing some hi-hat accents to use the choke inputs on the WMD percussion modules. And also it has a couple of flip-flops, which are basically dividers, divide by 2 and divide by 4. So it gives me a good assortment of 2 ands, 2 ors, an inverter, a couple of flip-flops all in one module. There's other modules. For what I was showing there, there's a 2 HP ors you could use. And I was going to show another demo, but we're out of time. Using an and, you can get a simple module that has an and and an or in it. But this one is one that I found just everything's available to me at once. It was easy to use live rather than having to change modes on it.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate that's awesome. We're gonna have to have Chris back on and do more. And Chris, you do streams too. So to check that out too. And then obviously the classes. I mean, I think everybody just got a taste of like your teaching style, or at least how you explain things, and it's very easy to follow.
Yeah, I like to build stuff up. For those who are interested in some tricks you do with live cases, earlier this week on DivKid Video YouTube channel, we did something called patching the TARDIS, where I went through a couple of examples of musical sketches, taking advantage of different modules, some of these tricks to build up pieces. So I would suggest maybe look for the DivKid video, look for the patching the TARDIS episode if you want to get some more ideas in that vein.
Yeah, a lot of great knowledge was dropped in those. I watched some of them, and they were really good. And yeah, and then you also did the patching, and you also building your monster case.
Yeah, we did a series on building the monster case up as well, and that was 4 on building the case out and 1 then on actually patching it.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I love it. Yeah, we'll have to have it. Definitely have to have you come back and talk some more. I appreciate you giving some ideas. I hope that gives everybody out there some ideas.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to share. It's always, I mean, that's the fun thing about these beasts. No one was born knowing how to use a modular, and no one knows everything about modular. It's expanding so fast with new modules. So that's why it's important for everyone to just keep learning and keep sharing.
Yeah, they just keep coming out. I mean, look at that chocolate job. I mean, it makes okay, I need to rethink what envelopes can do. I look at stuff. I look at the Europe Bureau, and I think there's gonna be a whole new world being built with that module. Like, what could you do with it? I have the vector right now. It's totally opening my mind up to not only sequencers, but also like the sub-sequencer ideas. And again, like some of these things were kind of in my rack, and some of them I sold off or traded off. But now I'm kind of getting it back and understanding it and getting more knowledge. So yeah, learning is a huge part of this niche of synthesis.
Yeah, a lot of people learn by just thrashing at the module and trying to see what it'll give them. But I'll spend, when I get a new module in the case, I'll spend a day or two focused on just exploring everything that module is going to give me, so it doesn't bug me when I'm trying to work with it later. I already know what it can do, and then it's a flow to compose rather than going, how do I do that?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I've been getting into manual reading myself, for sure. Awesome. Well, before we take off, if anybody wants to plug anything or let us know, Alex, I know you have something to plug for Freak Boutique, right?
Yeah, Freak Boutique is Monday, this coming Monday at 7 p.m. on the WMD YouTube page, which is WM Devices. And I just sent out the email to the performers, but we still have 2 open slots. If anybody wants to join, you can send me an email at alex@wmdevices.com and let me know that you want to play, and we'll try and make room.
How long are the slots these days? Are they still like a 10-15 minute set? Or?
We're doing 30, like 25, 30, or about 25 minutes now. So we're doing 30 minutes sections still. But as there's no changeover now, I'm just, instead of changing the schedule, I'm just letting people play longer. So we do a 25-minute set and then a 5-minute Q&A.
Cool.
And you do not need to feel any pressure to fill 25 minutes. If we run early, I'm totally fine with that. If you're just beginning and you're just getting into this and you want to play and you only got 10 minutes, you're totally welcome This is a community of positivity and just sharing, and that's what it's all about.
Very cool.
Yeah, definitely go check that out. Yeah,
So,
watch
yeah,
the other ones that
definitely.
are up there. Yeah.
So yeah,
So hit
if
up-
anyone wants to play, just let me know. And yeah, if not, just tune in Monday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. We'll see you guys that time.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Anybody else? Trovarsi, you have anything coming up?
I'm releasing a new EP next month. I almost forgot about that.
Okay.
Cool.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's coming out on AKELA Records. It's all live. Well, we just recorded him live. We didn't do any production in Ableton or anything. We're just like, screw it. Like, so yeah. But that comes out next month.
Oh, wow, cool. I'll have to check that out for sure.
Is that
Yeah,
you and Shaun together, or just you?
Me and Shaun.
Awesome.
We took the tracks that we played, like the last event we were able to play live, which was my birthday in February, and then we were like, we should just record those tracks and put them on an EP because we wrote them for that event, and so we did. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah.
That's right. I caught your live set before the festival yesterday. I don't know who I don't remember who was for that live set, but you and Shaun were playing.
Mhm.
That was, yeah, you two
Yeah,
play so
6
well.
a.m. group. That was so good.
Thank you.
So cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely follow everyone there. And if nobody else has anything else. Okay, sweet. All right,
Cool.
everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you everybody for being here. Trovarsi, Jim, Chris, Mitch, Alex. Thank you all for
Thanks
hanging
for
out
having
with
me.
me.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for hosting.
Yeah,
Always
thanks
great
for
to see
putting
you.
this together,
Yeah.
dude.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. All right. We're gonna head over to the other stream that we have going on. That I'm supposed to be on right now. So I'm gonna get off this one and head over to our other stream and start doing the other performances for the rest of the day. Don't forget there is a giveaway. If you missed the code word, ask somebody in chat. They'll send it to you. And we will have an after party after this next stream in New York for New York Modular Society. But without further ado, I'm going to take off, and I will see you in a few. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.